Hello, this is Frank of the 12 Gates, and today we're going to be talking about the last seal of Revelation, and this is the seventh seal. There's 7 seals altogether, and this is the very last one. And we shall balloon this thing up because it becomes very interesting. There's certain things in here, silence, and the number 7 will make this particular video go into quite a lot of depth, because on the surface, when you look at this, it doesn't seem to be much here, but when you get into it, this one is probably a lot deeper than the other ones. Now, for those who are not familiar with the software, what I'm going to do is explain it. Top row here is these are the verses that are under consideration. And this is the main pane here where the Bible verses are. It's in green or it's highlighted in yellow. Then basically that is the verses under consideration. That is the current book that we're in. That's the chapter and verse. And over here is a treasury of scripture knowledge, which gives a brief rundown sometimes, and it gives the cross references. If it's just numbers, then basically it relates to this book. If there's letters in front, like this one, Job, Psalms, Habakkuk, Zechariah, then they're somewhere else. The Strong's numbers, they are these numbers here in between. They tend to blow up, give the original translation of the English version of the word in, and they show the Greek original meaning and the alternative meanings that this word can have. And when I click over these, it shows up on there, and if I actually click on one of these, it blows up on this screen here. And also if I click over here, then you get more of a lowdown on what the actual chapter and verse is over here. So the version of the Bible that we're using is the King James Version 1769, which, as far as I'm aware, it really is the new King James Version. And I've compared it to the 1611 version. I can't see that much of a difference. And the software I'm using is called Xiphos, and it's with strong numbers and morphology, but it's mainly the Strong's numbers I'm using here. And basically, that is the software. Revelation 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half an hour. And that's it. I mean, how many words are it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 words. 20 words. And I've decided to make this video because I don't think there's an awful lot out there on this 7th seal, because people just look at that and think, well, there was silence in heaven. So what we're going to do is look at this verse. It's just 20 words, and we're going to look into it in more detail. I've got some scripture that relates to this. Most of these are not really cross references, it's more in reference to the keywords that I'm going to highlight. And basically what we're going to look at is this here, the 7th. Yeah. Important fact, you can say just the first 5 letters, 7. That's important. Silence. And this half an hour. And then finally, and when he had opened the 7th seal. He. Yeah, we're going to look at those. So first of all, we're going to look at the he. And the he is mentioned in Revelation chapter 5. And basically, if we start off in heaven, it says here, and no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And if we go to verse 7, and he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And he is mentioned. And one of the elders said unto me, Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. This is Jesus, isn't it? It's the Lamb. It's described as the Lamb. It's mentioned here, still a lamb as it had been slain. So it is Jesus that is opening the seals in Revelation chapter 6. He's in chapter 5, but he actually appears in chapter 6, opens up the 6 seals and opens up the final one, which is Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And he is Jesus. So the next thing we want to look at now is the space of a half an hour. This is the silence in heaven. It lasted about half an hour. Now, to get a better understanding of that, many people say it could be half an hour, literally, but many people say it is a prophetic half an hour. To understand a prophetic half hour, you have to go to Daniel 9:27, which is what I mentioned in a number of previous videos, but I shall read this again. It's about the last week of the 70th week, or the Daniel 70-week prophecy. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is the beast. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. This is describing the abomination of desolation. The beast becomes God. I've said this many times before, but I'm not going to labour on that. Basically, you need to focus on this for 1 week. Yeah. That is a prophetic week. And a week is 7 days. And each day is a year. So a prophetic week is actually 7 years. Yeah, so a prophetic day, going back to this, a prophetic day will be 1 year. To arrive at a prophetic hour, you divide that 1 day by 24, isn't it? But you're dividing 1 year by 24. And it ends up roughly about just over 2 weeks. If you divide that again in half, you will end up with a half an hour, which equates to 1 week. So if we read this again, and when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a week. Basically, in prophecy terms, the time frames are completely different. In prophecy, that half an hour is 1 week. That's 1 week here on earth, and it's probably half an hour in heaven. Yeah. But when you actually read some parts of the Bible, and it actually mentions a week, or 40 days and 40 nights, or that sort of thing, that is the actual time that it actually took. But when it comes to prophecy, you find you're working on different time frames. And this here, silence in heaven for 1 week, which puts a completely different complexion on the this verse completely. I mean, sometimes you can stand for 2 minutes silence, isn't it? They do that for respect to people who have just died, and it seems like a lifetime. This half an hour, if it was half an hour and it was silence, that would seem even longer. But a whole week, that will seem like an eternity, isn't it? Right, so for the next section now, what I'm going to do is we'll focus on the silence. Yeah, and let's just get the Strongs up on there. Hush, silence, not much really on there from the Strongs, but If we go to, I've got 3 verses here which I think relate to silence. I'm just going to read them out. One in Job. This is Job 29:21. Unto me men gave ear and waited and kept silence at my counsel. And the next one, Habakkuk, and that's 2:20. But the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silence before him. And then finally Isaiah 53:7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. Yeah. And I think that is the general situation here. That we've got a, like the sheep going into the shearers, and the other 2 verses, the same thing. We've got this sort of pregnant pause here, and it's silence, which is very fitting, because after this, it says, what's the next verse? And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And these are loud judgments, aren't they? Accompanied by a trumpet blast. Some say they're shofars, aren't they? What the Jews actually use, those ram's horns. But that's the silence bit. So if we go back to this Habakkuk 2:20, I think this really does sum up the whole situation with this silence. Yeah. But the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silence before him. Yeah. This is probably the exact opposite, isn't it? It's the same situation, silence, let all the earth keep silence. But with this one, it is, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Not on earth, in heaven. But this Habakkuk really does hint that basically, but the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silence before him. It's a mark of respect, isn't it? Like the 2-minute silence for these famous people that die, isn't it? You see it on the TV, and all the elite are standing there. 2-minute silence. It's the same thing with this, and I think that's what this situation is with this Revelation 8:1. It's a 2-minute silence, but it won't be a 2-minute silence. Yeah, respect for the Lord, the ultimate power. He's just released 6 seals, and he's just warming up, isn't he? And this half an hour is a prophetic half hour. It's a week. And what you've got to realise is all these events that take place, all the seals, the trumpets and the vials or the bowls, whatever you want to call them, they're 21 judgments, and these are things that have never been seen before, and they will never be seen again. And they have to be things that are like that you just can't mistake. They are the result of divine intervention, as opposed to the normal things that happen on the earth. We get signs in the cosmos all the time. We get signs on earth. We get earthquakes and landslides, and all these sort of things happen all the time, isn't it? Volcanic eruptions. But when you get a great earthquake, and when the sky goes pitch black and you've got a blood red moon and a solar eclipse and all this stuff going on, and silence in heaven for the space of an hour, you've got to remember this has come after the 6th seal, isn't it? Which is back here. It's back on chapter 6, isn't it? So this is a pregnant pause, and getting ready to release, giving people time to think. Yeah. A warning that the next phase is coming. And as we see throughout the Bible, God always gives warnings. I don't think he likes to give out judgments, but in the end, if he's left no option, then he'll give the judgments out. He always gives warning, right back to, I'd say, Pharaoh. Going back to Noah, isn't it? He warned him, and he had to get inside the ark, which we'll come on to in a minute. But throughout the Bible, he's always given advance warning and gives the option for repentance, I think, isn't it? Yeah, to reconsider. But if you don't heed the warning, then he dishes out the judgments, isn't it? Right, and finally, what we're going to do, we're going to concentrate on this here, the number 7. And this is absolutely crucial. There's quite a few numbers that seem to keep popping up all the time, but I'm going to just focus on this number 7 because this is mentioned. I mean, let's just take the general meaning of the number 7. Number 7 normally means completion, perfection or perfected, and a sort of an ending, and also a sort of a rest or a break, I think, really, for the number 7. But if we take, before we even go, I'm going to cover the Old and the New Testament. I've got just got a number here because basically there are 750 instances of the word number 7. If you add seventh and things like that in there, you will find it's even more. But there's about 750 in the Old and New Testament, and of that, I think there are 54 instances of the word 7 in the book of Revelation. And there's a whole stack of them. There's the 7 churches, the 7 angels, which we've got here, 7 trumpets, the 7 seals, the 7 vials, the 7 bowls. It just goes on and on. There's just so many. There's 54 of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this. To try and cover all that, you can't do it in one video. But if you check the article out, I've written an article on this topic, and it goes in a bit more detail. There's a few more verses mentioned there. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with the Old Testament, and we will go to God Himself to see how important this number 7 is. And we're all aware of this one. Let's read it out. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1, 2, and 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God ended His work which He had made, and He rested on the 7th day from all His work which He had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it He had rested from all His work which God created and made. And from that we've got our week, isn't it? And from that it comes the Jewish Sabbath day, isn't it? The Jews, they follow the Old Covenant, the law, and their Sabbath day is the 7th day, isn't it? Their day of rest. So that's one example there where 7 is very important. Basically, the creation, isn't it? So another example is Joshua. If we go in here, it's Joshua chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. Basically, they are looking to take over Jericho. And Joshua is leading the Israelites. And let's just read these 2 verses. And I think this is the instructions from God Himself. And it says, "And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do it 6 days." So they went round the city once every day for 6 days. "And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets." Yeah, and after that, actually it says, "And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him." Yeah. So again, the number 7 again. This is God instructing Joshua, and again, you can see here the seventh day. It's the same as the seven seals and the seventh seal, isn't it? And then if we go into the New Testament now, I'll just give another example here. There's hundreds of examples, but I'm just going to go through these. Matthew 13 as well is another one, but this one here, this is called the seven woes. Yeah, and this is Jesus talking here. It's all in red. And he's speaking to the multitude. Yeah, I think this is still part of the Olivet Discourse, isn't it? But I think this is very relevant, because if you read this, this is what he says. When Jesus repeats himself, and certainly if he does it a number of times, you've got to take notice. He uses this line. These are called the seven woes. And here we are, is the first one, verse 13. But woe unto scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. Yeah. For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Yeah. Now, if you go to the next verse, it's the same again. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. And then that's the second woe. And then the third woe again. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites. Exactly the same again. That's the third one. That's verse 15. If we keep going down here, again, it comes up again for the fourth time. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites. And there it is again, and again, and again. Comes up 7 times. 7 woes, they call it, don't they? This is Matthew 23. And that's just another example of the number 7 that seems to come up all the time, everywhere in the Bible. And it's funny, if we go back to Joshua the days of Noah, isn't it? Now, let's just read this. We all know this, but I'll read it again anyway. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. Yeah. Now, again, I never realised. I just thought they had male and females. I must admit, I haven't really read this that closely. But now I see it. Sevens. Yeah, male and female, but in sevens of every clean beast. So say, I don't know, 7 cows, 7 goats, male and female. Yeah, and of beasts that are not clean, just 2, male and female. Yeah, and the birds exactly the same. But this is the bit here that is the strange bit. Yeah. He tells them that it's going to rain. The rain will come upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. But he says, for yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth. But he tells him to go inside the ark 7 days before the rain comes. It could have been blazing sunshine. But he told him to go in there 7 days before. So, why 7 days? Again, there's something with that number, isn't there? You see, because what was happening, again, if you think about it, why did he tell him to go into the ark for 7 days? It just seems ridiculous. Why not 5 or 6 days? Or why not just 24 hours before? But no, it had to be 7 days. Because what's happening? He's rebooting the planet, isn't he? And what he's doing, he wants basically Noah to reenact. He's doing the recreation of the planet now. It's been handed over to Noah, isn't it, in the ark. And it's 7 days, which is what it took to create the earth, isn't it? 6 days plus a day of rest. And that's why he tells them to get inside the ark for the 7 days. Again, this number is so crucial in the Bible. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to read you in the book of Revelation the examples of the number 7 and how it actually appears. There are 7 churches, 7 spirits, 7 golden lampstands, 7 stars, 7 lamps, 7 seals, 7 horns, 7 eyes, 7 angels, 7 trumpets, 7 thunders, 7 heads, 7 crowns, 7 angels, 7 plagues, 7 vials or bowls, 7 mountains, and finally 7 kings. Let's take a look at one of my favourites, Isaiah. This is Isaiah 11:2, but we'll look at 11:1 as well. This is the prophecy concerning the birth of the Messiah. And let's have a read of this. I've mentioned this before. Maybe not actually. I think it's the tribe of Judah I mentioned in the other video, but this is the stem of Jesse. Let's read it. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Yeah, that's referring to the Messiah. Yeah, and some say it's they mention David, tribe of Judah, but that's what this Isaiah is saying. And then we'll have a look at this. There's no mention of the number 7 here, but this is the attributes of what this Messiah will have. I'll read it first, and then I'll point out to you that there's the number's even working in here. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. Yeah, this is the attributes of the Messiah. This is way before he actually came. So let's go through this. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. 1. The Spirit of wisdom 2, and understanding. 3, the spirit of counsel. 4, and might. 5, the spirit of knowledge. 6, and the fear of the Lord. 7. 7 attributes mentioned by Isaiah. That's one to ponder over there. I mean, these are all the cross references here. You can take it even further, but I'll just leave it at that for this one. So, to summarise all this, it's on the surface. You just read. Let's read it again. This Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And on the surface, you just look at that and think, oh, it was silent in heaven for about half an hour. And that's it. And you think, well, that's it. That's all that the seventh seal is. And I must admit, I did the first 6 seals and I thought, the seventh seal is sort of like a non-event, really, isn't it? But when you get into it, it's about as far as you can get from the truth as it is, to be perfectly honest. And this here, I think it breaks up the 7 trumpets which follow after this, and it follows the 6 seals, which are basically judgments, and it's basically chaos, isn't it, being let loose on the earth. And then those weird signs in the cosmos, and the great earthquake here down on earth, and everything starts kicking off, and then it goes all quiet. This is, I think the relevance of this is, if you go back to Genesis, and it's the number 7, I think this 7th seal, it's the 7th judgment, isn't it? Yeah, if you take the trumpets, the 7th trumpet is the 14th judgment, isn't it? But this one is the 7th seal of the first 7 judgments. So it is actually a 7. And that's what I think is going on here. This is basically, it's Noah, and that's 7 days that was mentioned. It's the 7 days mentioned with Joshua. It's the 7 days for the creation of the world, if you actually take the rest day as well. That's what this is all about. Yeah, but this isn't the creation of the world. This is the destruction, isn't it? The exact reverse. And the conclusions, all you can draw from this, really, if you go back to some of these verses, I think certainly Isaiah, this one, there's a lot of things hidden in the Bible. I mean, this, you could say there isn't 7 attributes here. You could say, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding, that's 1. The Spirit of counsel and might, that's 2. And the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, that's 3, isn't it? But you look at the commas, where the commas are. Yeah, straight away that separates, that's 1 there. And wisdom and understanding, you could say they're the same thing. But counsel and might, they're not the same thing either, are they? And knowledge and the fear of the Lord, that's not the same thing either, is it? These are 7 attributes, isn't it? But what you've got to realise is, throughout all the Bible, you realise that certain things just keep coming up over and over again. You see certain numbers for certain reasons, they tend to come up. I mean, it's 7 here. There's another one I'll bring up some other time in the future, which refers to something else. And these things just keep coming up over and over and over again. Judgment's the same thing, And in the end, you've got to realise that a lot of the stuff that you read in the Bible, like Noah had to get in the ark, from what I can see, 7 days before the flood started. Well, if the Lord knows when the floods are starting, why don't he just tell him to get in like half an hour or 24 hours before? But no, he told him to get in 7 days before. Why? Because he's rebooting the planet, and it's the 7 days, isn't it? Number 7 again. So, and this is how he thinks, you see, and he's a spirit, and he doesn't think like us. And once you ditch the human logic and just approach it with your brain in neutral, you can start to see these things appearing, and the Bible starts to come alive, you know. Yes, I've just skimmed the surface here with this. The 4 things that I think stand out here: 7, silence, half an hour, and he. I mean, I can go into a lot more detail, but in the video is just going to get too lengthy. So just go over to the 12gates.org and check the blog post, the article that is called The 7th Seal of Revelation and the Relevance of Number 7, or the Significance of Number 7. And I'll go into a bit more detail there. But I know there's going to be some people out there, they're going to say, well, this is all numerology and things like that. And I think, well, yes and no, isn't it? I mean, you know, as a Christian, we're not supposed to be into all that. Like Bible codes is numerology, isn't it? And I'm not going to go into that. But, you know, numerology, astrology, all that sort of thing, you know, if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to go into that sort of thing. But I go into things if the Lord has mentioned it. So, I mean, if he mentions the number 7 750 times, or at least 700 in the Bible, it's there for a reason, isn't it? So, and if he created the world in you know, the universe in 6 days, and he rested on the 7th, and he's made a big deal out of making it the fact that it is 7 days, including the rest day, it's there for a reason, isn't it? So, and if Jesus did the 7 woes, then, and he's done other things as well that come up in 7s, then basically there's something there, isn't it, that needs to be, well, it needs to be noted, doesn't it? So that's my answer to that. But certainly I won't be doing numerology on here and that sort of thing. I mean, at the end of the day, that's an astrology, all that's all divination, isn't it? You know, but the 6th seal is, you know, when you get into it, it is a form of astrology, I suppose, really, isn't it? It is, but it is mentioned there in the Bible. And if you get into Genesis, I can't remember the actual verse, he put the stars, the moon, and the sun, and the planets in the sky. They were there for basically the seasons, the times, and also for signs. It is actually mentioned in there. I haven't actually dug it up on this software, but you go and look, it is there. So that's my answer to that one. Yeah, but I just find it fascinating that, you know, 20 words like this just goes to show the power of the Bible, isn't it? The power of God's Word. 20 words, and you can end up sort of spending hours, days even, just sort of analysing this stuff. And I think you can overanalyse if you're not too careful, but the Bible is there to be analysed, I think. And, you know, when you know, maybe it is half an hour, this end bit here, but if you change that, it's a prophetic half hour, that means a week. It changes that whole sentence completely, doesn't it? But I always leave things as they are. It says a space of half an hour, and I focus silence, and it's in heaven, not on earth, in heaven. And just leave it at that, isn't it? But, you know, there's so many different interpretations, even for this one here, for Revelation. And as I keep saying, there's only 2 entities that really know, and that's St. John the Divine and the Lord who gave him the vision in the first place, isn't it? And that's it. So, but I just try to read the Bible as it is. No fancy diagrams and flowcharts and all the rest of it. Just me, and and just see what you come up with. And it's amazing. You just put your brain in neutral, ditch the Mensa mentality and the scientific approach, and it starts to leap out of you. It's amazing what you can find. And finally, if you think all this 7, the number 7, it's all just a load of coincidence, I'll leave this final one for you, and that is, how long is the tribulation period? And if you answer that question, you'll find you'll come back to that number yet again. Yes, so don't forget to check out the other 6 videos. This is the final in the series, this is seal number 7, and I've done another 6 videos, of which I think the 6th seal seems to be the most popular one at the moment, but that one's an eye-opener. But just remember that all these are just my ideas, theories, views and speculations. Could be correct, maybe not. That's what I'm saying. We don't really know until it actually starts happening, isn't it? Whether that theory is correct or not, isn't it? But the 7th seal, that is one of those ones that it just, I don't know. It's one of those verses you probably read it and you think, silence in heaven, about space for half an hour, and you want to get onto the trumpets, isn't it? You think, well, the trumpets, that's where it all starts kicking off. And you probably sort of miss this verse out, but on the closer inspection, there's quite a lot going on here. Not much comes up on the Strongs. Nothing much at all, really. But anyway, this is Frank of the 12 Gates. Just remember to be safe, be prepared, and I shall catch you in the next video.